Obviously, I'd like to give the biggest, the warmest welcome I can think of to each and every one of you who are here with us for what is, for Delancey Street, the grandest day that we could think of for the grand opening of our new home, the Embarcadero Triangle. We have with us today a number of friends who have in fact been with us in the truest sense of the word since Delancey Street inception, almost 20 years ago. Now, luckily for everybody, this is not a celebration of all of Delancey Street and its retrospective history, because otherwise, in the introduction of each of these people, I would have to tell you probably 20 stories each of the times when they have quite literally helped save our lives. You don't do a place like Delancey Street without always living on the edge. You know, if you do something different and new, then at every moment it could either fall apart or it could make it big. And along the way, these people have been here for us in the most solid, imaginable health. But this is, in fact, a celebration of this particular achievement, which I think is the greatest one that we've done to date, because it was the one most over our heads in every way possible. And similarly, each of the people with us today has been critical in helping this happen. The opening remarks of the celebration are going to be made by our mayor, Art Agnos. When Art began being our friend, he was not in public office, and luckily for us, when we came to the most difficult part of building this, you know, you think at a certain point that it really rolls along. Well, let me tell you, that never happens. It's constantly about to fall apart. And trying to conclude it was something we were having great difficulty with. And Art was mayor. Art has been really a member of the Delancey Street family for almost these 20 years. And one day, I'm just going to tell you this story so you'll understand the kind of friend this man is. It's terrific when you have a friend and you call him and you say, can you help us in such and such a way? But he's an even more giving person, because one day he called me and said, I've been walking down along the waterfront. We have no entrance that's correct for our building, because in classic fashion, we had built this magnificent structure and we had no road in front of it. So there was no way to get in. There were railroad tracks and there was a barrier. And we were essentially planning to helicopter ourselves in, until Art said, no problem. Let's get to everyone involved. Let's get this thing moving. Let's get these tracks gone. Let's get a road here. Let's get sidewalks. Let's get lights. Let's get cut-throughs. And in the blink of an eye, that's exactly what happened. And then he further said to me, and if we have problems getting the proper funding for all this, you call me. and I'll go to the people of the city and to the businesses, and I'll do what we have to do for our home. And it is indeed our home with the mayor. Let me introduce Mayor of San Francisco, Orlando.
Thank you very much, Jeannie. One of the ways I like to talk about San Francisco when I give speeches in the city and around it is to describe San Francisco as a family-sized city. I feel like I'm in the theater around. As a family-sized city. And as I look at all the people that have come here to celebrate a genuine San Francisco event, I see the whole family that is part of this family-sized city. I see the captains of industry. I saw Dick Rosenberg from the Bank of America here, standing next to Kathy Sneed Markham, who works on a wonderful farming program out at the San Francisco jail, and between the sheriff with supervisors, would-be supervisors, commissioners. I mean, if you are anybody in San Francisco's family, you're right here today, and that is truly appropriate, and it's my great honor to speak as the mayor of this city to acknowledge and celebrate the tremendous achievement that's been made by some extraordinary people under the leadership, first of John Maher and now of Mimi Silbert. I just saw Leo McCarthy, and I was trying to figure out how the hell do I work my buddy into the next comment I've got to make. And I just want to say that my mentor in politics is here, and he caused me to forget Mimi's last name for a moment. The boss usually does that, doesn't he? The boss usually does that. But we're here to celebrate a great occasion. And I do a number of occasions like this. Not as many as Willie Brown, but pretty close to it. He should be here shortly as soon as he fixes a little $4 billion problem in Sacramento. Just in the last 4 months, I've had a chance to greet the President of the Soviet Union and celebrate his visit here. I've had a chance to greet Nelson Mandela and celebrate his visit here. And those are all thrilling events for the mayor of San Francisco. But this event is all that they are and a little bit more. And I want you all to know what that means. The celebration is being held by a lot of VIPs that are here in the crowd, but those of you who are the men and women of Delancey Street are the real celebration here today.
Yeah.
Take a good look at yourselves. You've already celebrated because you have succeeded every single day of every single month of every single year that you have worked to put this magnificent structure together, which is really the personification of the Delancey Street spirit, dedication, and commitment to one another and the problem solving that epitomizes Delancey Street. That's the real celebration here today. And to join with you in making that happen, I had the privilege as the mayor of San Francisco to affix my signature to something that was passed by the Board of Supervisors, a number of whom are here that I can see as I look about me: Supervisor Hallinan, Supervisor Gonzalez, Supervisor Maher, and I'm sure some of the others are here. I don't see them, so I can't mention their names, but I'm sure they're here. And that was to take a portion of 1st Street, which is out in front, and rename it Delancey Street. And there's a significance to that name change because nobody accomplishes what you have accomplished here today alone. And none of the problems that come here are solved alone. And what we wanted, the Board of Supervisors and I, representing this city, wanted to say with that is that when you see that sign and you're traveling that road, here to Delancey Street and through it and out into the world that you eventually go, you're not alone. And that's what it means with the change of the name from First Street to Delancey Street in my view. But as you're traveling that road and you get to this place, I want there to be another symbol of the great magnificence of this organization. And so I took it upon myself to talk to your president and ask her permission to develop a special sign so that when you see the street and you look up, you'll see a very special flag that flies over this structure that you have created. And so today, Mimi, I want to show you and to present to you and through you to all of the members the very first Delancey Street flag that has ever been made with your colors and your logo to fly over this place. That flag is not going to fly alone. I want it to fly with another flag, because you are a part of San Francisco. And so yesterday I took down from over City Hall, where it flew, another flag. And that is the flag of San Francisco that I also want to present to all of you so that these two flags can fly together and forevermore symbolize the oneness that is Delancey Street and San Francisco. Congratulations to all of you.
Now, of course, our people are rushing immediately to interrupt the ceremony to figure out where to fly the flag. But we'll all argue over that. the end of the ceremony. I'd like to introduce next the Lieutenant Governor of the State of California, Leo McCarthy. Let me just say this, because I want to tell you with each person so that you understand, along with the fact that they represent the leadership of the state of California and the city of San Francisco, these really are people. Leo has been also a friend going back our 20 years. And when we first got this land, as you hear each story of what these people have done, it begins to let you know the story of building this home, because it wouldn't have been a Delancey Street project had it been an easy one with the path carved for us. One particular problem, after we fought for a year to get the land, and after we had to get all of the approval of the developers, and after we went back and forth between the port and redevelopment and got the lease organized, we then found out that there was a law that forbade housing on this particular site. Of course, the site that we had spent 2 years selecting. We zeroed in on it unfailingly, as we always do. And the city told us, oh, don't worry, it's just a small technical problem that they were going to work out with the state. And we waited and we waited and nothing happened. And then we went directly to the State Lands Commission and asked them, and they said, not a prayer. We have never made an exemption. We have no intention of giving San Francisco an exemption. It doesn't really matter. So give it up. And the long story made short is that after almost a year, the State Lands Commission working with the Attorney General and really almost everyone in the state. The State Lands Commission, through our friend Leo McCarthy, agreed to the exemption, which required special legislation that Willie Brown carried for us. So when Leo comes up here to say a couple of words, he's coming not only as our friend, but a person, another we did it, without whom not this would be not. Leo McCarthy, Lieutenant Governor.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, I was looking around for the flagpoles because so far we have 2 from Art, and Mimi, the least I can do is bring one down from the state of California that's going over the state capitol. We're going to have, we don't need a permit for this, do we, to erect any flagpoles?
Just got it.
All right. We said we're going to build 18 flagpoles to take care of all the flags that Mimi's going to get here, giving greatest prominence to Delancey streets and the cities, of course. I have just a couple of words I'm going to mention, and they are Mimi Silbert, John Amarato, Jimmy Tyrell, Jack Scott, and a few more that I don't know. Those people, the men and women of the Delancey Street Foundation, made this extraordinary thing happen. And for those of us who travel throughout the state of California, talking to people about how you can help men and women living in this state who are trying through their own will to get help, to struggle out of problems they have so they can lead good, productive lives. Everywhere I go, I'm going to say, go to Delancey Street in San Francisco. Maybe all the 30 million people of the state don't know what's happening here, but I promise to tell quite a few of them. This is from all of California, thanking you for making this possible. Congratulations.
Shall I read it? But it has 5 whereases, and each whereas attests to our greatness at Delancey Street. 5 whereases! Not bad. Okay, so I've told you a little bit about completing the building. I've told you a little bit about the middle where we hit a snag. And now, of course, let me say, everything starts at its beginning. And to begin this dream of this new home was something that couldn't be done by just those of us in Delancey Street, and couldn't be done even by those of us all who had graduated from Delancey Street. We really needed a leader who would believe that this was possible. And luckily for us, and I'm going to just keep repeating this, we had a mayor who had been with Delancey from the beginning. But for our purposes here, the key feature is that she stood with Delancey when we came with this crazy notion that we were going to take 300 unskilled people, the vast majority of whom had never held a hammer, and without a savings account, which is where we were at the moment. We had never even thought of having a savings account. To have a savings account, you have to have extra money. It never happened to us. Without a savings account, with no real knowledge of management of these things, we intended to build this new She said, fantastic! And when we selected our site, and Mayor Feinstein worked with Wilbur Hamilton, then the head of redevelopment, and Leroy King, who was the head of the redevelopment commission when we first negotiated our lease, and he's the head of the redevelopment commission now that we're finishing it. And Mayor Feinstein said, this is what we're doing. And she opened the doors to us to something called the Office of Affordable Housing Production Program, which allowed us as low-income housing to receive money from office developers, both Hills Plaza, which later became Beta West Hills Plaza project, and Gerald Hines Interests, who are building 343 Sansom. But the key moment that I'm just going to capsulize for you was when, after all this support happened and Diane had gotten it going for us, her committee that was out selecting the perfect site for the ballpark goes back, you know, how many perfect sites have been fought for the ballpark. And her committee came back to her and they had selected the perfect site. And what was the site they had selected? Right here, 600 Embarcadero. And Diane said to them, absolutely not. Because one day, that's going to be the land. I'd like to introduce Diane Feinstein, and I'd like to say Diane was here just a few weeks ago, right before the primary. And as the family member she's always been with Delancey Street, she said to every one of our residents who was there, I want you to get your suits out, I want you to get them pressed, and I want you to find your best tie. Because if I'm elected governor, every one of you at Delancey Street is going to be there at my inauguration. Diane, we have our ties on and we're ready! Diane Feinstein!
Mimi left one thing out. I also said, polish those shoes. I'm so pleased to be here. I mean, after all, if you can't dream and occasionally see a dream come true, what value does life really have? And this, in a sense, I have to take it off. Mimi and I are two I love together. What I was going to say, if you can't dream in life, and occasionally have a dream come true, really then what is life all about? And in essence, this is Delancey Street's dream come true. It's a human dream. It's a dream about people that want to turn their life around. It's a dream that says, see, you can have a program like this and it doesn't cost the taxpayers one thin dime. It says, see what people can do, that they can open businesses, that they can build buildings, that they can handcraft windows. Every one of them is made in wood. They can put in the copper fittings. They can build beautiful stained glass. They can do the plumbing that's Class A. They can provide the program that in fact can change a life. And that's the dream of Delancey, and these in fact are the bricks that celebrate that dream. I mean, how could anyone say no? Very easy for me, Delancey has been very special. My life has been very closely touched by Delancey, going back now some 15 years, when the first thought of a Delancey Foundation came into San Francisco and pointed out that one of the things inherent in Delancey's policy was that in order to change the person, you needed to also change the environment. And there was a major battle, as you recall, in those days over zoning. Whether Delancey Street should, in fact, be allowed to open a home in that austere, wonderful area called Pacific Heights. Whether the pristineness of Pacific Heights might not be somewhat bothered by the nature of Delancey Street. Well, I'm living testimony to tell you, Pacific Heights was never safer than when Delancey Street was on. I think that for all of you who worked on this, because that's really what this is all about. These buildings aren't just buildings. They aren't just places to sleep. These buildings are truly the hopes and dreams. They show what people can do. They show the striving for excellence and quality. And in essence, they are living bricks, much more living bricks than bricks that are built in other ways. So I'm just so proud to be here. I consider myself a part of the Delancey family. And after all, how could I be inaugurated without family being present? So I want to just say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Delancey, it's great. Me, the geraniums look super. Fish emulsion is the right thing to do. And ladies and gentlemen of Delancey, I take my hat off. Congratulations, and let's just say thank you for a dream come true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Passing the geraniums look good because I think it was a day or 2 days right before the primary election for Diane running for governor. She paused, came over, took some time, and told us exactly what kinds of geraniums should go in the pot and how they were to be cared for. Okay. The next person I'd like to introduce is when I told you the story about the fact that we got this land and we found out that housing wasn't allowed on it, the law that disallowed the housing was a law that was passed many years ago when he was just a child prodigy in the Assembly by then Assemblyman John Burton. And it is, in fact, the Burton Bill that disallowed the housing that we needed. And so, of course, John Burton, when he was a congressman, now that he's an assemblyman, in between when he was an attorney, all through the 20 years of Delancey Street, John Burton has been the person. You know, there's always one friend that you call when the task has no glamour, no fun, is very difficult to do, requires enormous energy, and taking on all of your friends is a method of doing it. And for some reason, we have selected John Burton to be the person that we've always asked when those kinds of issues came. And so who better to ask for an exemption to his own bill? Which had never been exempted. But of course, our friend, Johnny Burton. And Johnny jumped in, and it turned out to be, he explained, far more difficult to get this small exemption from the bill than it was for him to write and get the entire bill passed to begin with. A year's worth of work went into preparing that legislation. And this man who really has stood with us solid on every issue imaginable worked his way to get the only exemption ever given to the Burton bill, and he's now back in the Assembly, and he remains one of our closest friends. Please welcome Johnny Burton, Assemblyman.
I get the thankless tasks, I guess I don't get to cut the ribbon, huh? Anyway, I just, first of all, Mimi and brothers and sisters from Delancey Street, I want to bring the best wishes to you of Speaker Willie Brown and Pro Tem Mike Roos, both of whom planned to be here with me, but they are up still trying to negotiate with the governor some form of a budget. And after you get through seeing what he's leaving you, Diane, you're going to wonder why you want to go up there. But I'll tell you this, we're all praying and all working hard to see that you get there, because it's time after 8 years of George Deukmejian's heartless governorship that we have somebody there that cares about people. We can say all this shit now that he signed the bill. Mimi didn't tell you, we had another little Delancey Street deal. It's also the only one that's been exempt from the wages and hours provisions of the state labor code. And up until the governor signed that bill last Friday, I wasn't saying one bad thing about him. What do you think about the governor? Well, he's got his problems. I'm sure he's working on it. The day it was, do a hell of a job, Abe. That's all right. Anyway, the day that it was signed, we started speaking the truth again. But basically, all I want to say is I'm just so very happy and very proud to be here with you. I was here at the half opening, I guess, at a half celebration, Mimi called it. And at that time, I used the phrase that some of us who have played poker over the years understand, is that how this group of people sat in a no-limit poker game with no pair and came out breaking the bank, and came out with one of the greatest things that ever happened in this city or any city to my memory or my judgment. And I would just like to say that I'm sure there's 3 people that are with us that aren't here to watch it. I know that Moscone and Philip and Sala are upstairs looking down, smiling and crying with us, because the Delancey Street family was always part of our family. And I can remember the days of George when he ran for mayor, and the days of Philip and Sala. And I can remember so well going to a meeting up at Russia in the Pacific Heights neighborhood that Diane talked about, and Johnny Marr bringing me into this room, and I wasn't sure what the hell I was going to be doing in there. And I got finished saying something, you know, not much, just enough. And they started that applause and the stamping of the feet. And I walked out and looked at Philip. I said, Jesus, I guess I really made a speech. And he said, kid, they do that for anybody, anytime. And that's the thrill of having a big brother. He never lets you get anything, whether you deserve it or not. But really, I'm proud to be here. I'm happy to be here with everybody. And as I say, I know Philip, Sal, and George are up there, and they could not be happier either, because all of what any of us have done in this town since the day that Delancey Street started has been due not to the organization, because the organization doesn't get involved, but to the men and women of this organization that take a look at their society and figure as full-fledged citizens they've got a right to be involved in the political process. And when they make a determination to do something, it's done with heart, it's done with soul, and it's done with the same type of commitment that built this thing, starting in a card game with no pair. God bless you.
Kind of visible representation here. The next person I'd like to introduce is really, I think, the mentor of certainly basically me, all of us at Delancey Street, and then became the mentor of this process because after years of having Jimmy Herman as a close family member of Delancey Street, we were lucky enough to have him on the Port Commission, and he has now become our landlord. So, when we started this project, as in so many other issues along the line at Delancey, I called Jimmy, and he has handheld and directed me at least 150 steps along the way. He's now president of the Port Commission, and Jimmy, the Port Commission, and Mike Huerta is fantastic executive director. When we came for the 900th time, of course it didn't hurt that the mayor has now taken the idea on as his own, but when we came with a request that the tracks had to be out, and they had to be out by 5 o'clock that day, within 3 minutes, the Port Commission approved, Mike Huerta approved, and 24 hours later, the tracks were gone. Jimmy has had that kind of response to Delancey Street from beginning to end. He's not a person that ever thinks to say yes or no, because the answer is always yes. His only issue is when. Can we get it done now? Can we get it done in 5 minutes? Or do we have to wait 10 whole damn minutes to accomplish whatever the task is that we want? To our mentor, Port Commission President, ILWU President, Jimmy Herman.
With an introduction like that, how can you lose? I must first confess to you that if there's any area in my own lifetime where I'm a failure, it's as a landlord. And I have a living example of that in the presence of the mayor, who lived in a small apartment downstairs from me for 22 years, and with absolute regularity took advantage of my good and kind nature. More often than not, didn't pay the rent, but if he did, always gave you a beat. So if that's a sign of something, it's really a sign of dismal failure. Anybody who has had any association with this great family has had their lives blessed, because they have encountered a rare group of people exemplified by that one inimitable, spectacular character known as Mimi Silver. And as my friend Art Agnos has pointed out, as our next governor, Dianne Feinstein, has observed, as has been reported by Lieutenant Governor McCarthy, and as you've heard from Assemblyman John Burton, she is truly an irresistible force, because she is a force that has a total preoccupation with doing good, with redeeming the lives of people, with making the world a healthier place. These and other examples would be received as platitudes. But there is the reality of Mimi Silver and Abe and Johnny Apodaca and so many others. There is the proof here that can never ever be subject to contradiction. we come to this magnificent home that is built on the Embarcadero, this great half moon that was once made up of men and women, workers who brought cargo to the docks, who loaded and discharged the cargo from the ships, who delivered the cargo from the docks to wherever it was to go. This waterfront suddenly died. It died because of change that no one could control. But a remarkable new birth has come forth. A birth that has brought vibrancy and life, not unlike what we had before. Has brought the brothers and sisters back to the waterfront that we embrace with affection, that we welcome, that we have a care and a concern for. Delancey Street is a place that does many things. As we wander through this magnificent new home, the tendency will be to marvel at the architecture. Look at the breathtaking craftsmanship. Observe how well everything is put together. Look at the craftsmanship that is unexcelled any place in this city. It would be, however, a mistake to dwell on this facility and see Delancey Street just for the magnificence of its new home. This home, after all, is a place where people will live and will grow and will rebuild their lives. The real Delancey Street are the young men and women that you see around us. People of all colors, of all races, of every ethnic background. People who believe or don't believe in a religious point of view. All of whom, however, are here because they had a need and because they chose to turn the corner and do something about problems, and in the process bless this city as it has never been blessed before, just simply by their presence. There are many people who worked on this project, and I have the good fortune to represent the union that works on that waterfront, what little is left of it. And I know on their behalf, as well as on behalf of the construction workers and all of the other men and women who took their skills and who made available their professional craft, and they placed it at the disposal of those that we do embrace as our brothers and our sisters. So this building here today, I speak to you about on behalf of an organization that truly welcomes you, on behalf of a class that genuinely appreciates you, for a citizenry of a city that desperately needs you. For all of them and for all of us, as people will forevermore ride down that Embarcadero or jog as they're not supposed to, or walk as they should, and they look over and they see this building, they will for years and years to come ask, what is that place? What is that place called Delancey Street about? How was it given birth? And the answer will be that it's a place that became a haven for people who had no other place to go, whose lives were wrecked, whose lives needed to be redeemed, and they were fortunate enough to find Delancey Street, where there was warmth, there was shelter, there was love, and their lives were rebuilt in numbers not to be calculated, but in quality to be measured as you walk around here today by the character and the caliber of the people that you'll meet, along with the great leadership that goes into making up a family that anyone like myself will acknowledge being part of, is to be part of, have as part of your life, one of the great experiences anyone can enjoy. Long live Delancey Street. Long stand this building. God bless everybody who walks through its portals. Thank you.
Which is balance. You know, we are people who have lived on one extreme, and we have tilted the scales of life too much to destruction and pain and difficulty. And the point of Delancey Street is to begin to give people opportunities to do good things, to begin to balance those scales. I'm going to ask our next speaker to take the task of balancing the scales of this presentation, which has been, for a moment, balanced too heavily to the left. As a governor's appointee to the Board of Corrections, the California State Board of Corrections, I'm proud to introduce the next speaker, who is, and there's also here, you know, it's so huge and everyone's down, I don't see him, but the head of the Department of Corrections is also here. The gentleman that I'm about to introduce has been a tremendous support to Delancey for a number of years, has watched this building grow, has been proud of every inch of it, and these people who represent the opposite of Delancey, the people who run the prison systems and who provide what we think of as the backboard against which a dream like Delancey Street rises, have come here each time. They've come with the people who have built the prisons, with the sheriffs of every county, each one of whom are now building new jails, and they come and they look at our magnificent new home, and they keep looking at our people and saying, "You're the same people that were with us?" And the answer is no! We aren't the same people. We have the same names. But in Delancey Street, we're learning a process of changing everything to rebalance our lives. And the governor of California has stood with Delancey Street, has in fact appointed me, and has praised us. We were commended by the President of the United States on a recommendation by the governor, and as his representative, I'd like to introduce the Undersecretary of the Youth and Adult Correctional Agency, which sits over all of the Youth Authority and the Department of Corrections and all of the other half of our lives, of our prior lives. Let me introduce our friend Craig Brown.
Thank you, Mimi. It's a pleasure to be here. I thought this was a Republican program. After all, it takes some of society's biggest problems, it solves it, and it doesn't put its hand out for one dime of government money. If that isn't a Republican, I don't know what. It is my pleasure to be here on behalf of the governor and bring you his congratulations. Following the lead of the lieutenant governor, I won't read the 6 paragraphs or whatever it is in the letter from the governor. I would point out about the quality of this building. We have built a few prison beds, and we do look at the quality of construction quite a bit. Probably about 10 years ago, I was in a different role, Mayor Agnes was in a different role. There was a debate about prison construction. The proponents of the Department of Corrections testifying that they were building a stark and efficient and cheap prison. The mayor was then the chairman of the committee reviewing that proposal, and I think he made an analogy, something along the lines of, I want you guys to go out and design a Chevy. I don't want you coming in here and trying to build a Cadillac. Well, if that was a Cadillac, I'd have no idea what this structure is. It is some Italian name that I couldn't pronounce, but they've only got probably one of them, because this is unbelievable. The quality of construction you simply couldn't buy. All of you deserve much praise for this. And again, on behalf of the governor, I'd like to congratulate you for your magnificent achievement.
We have, it's Mike, if you would hold them up. We have from our representatives in Congress, resolutions, entrances into the congressional record, awards from Congressman Mel Levine, from Representative Nancy Pelosi, from Barbara Boxer. We've received endless telegrams and congratulations, literally all the way from Washington to our local friends. The most wonderful thing about all that is what it says about those of us who are in Delancey Street. And I'd like all the residents of Delancey Street to gather closely, if we would. And I'd like to hear you loud and strong with me. I'm gonna spend a few minutes here, if I may, at our party. Because it's our party, and we can cry if we want to. Number of years ago, a statesman talking about building a homeland said, if you will it is no dream. Did we dream it? Yeah! With all our heart. Did we will it? Yeah! With all our collective minds. Did we work it? Yeah! With all our hands. Did our friends help us? Yeah! With all their support. And together, did we make this impossible dream come true? Yeah! Did we do it? We did! Who did it? We did! Who did it? We did! Who did it? We did! home. It takes a dream. You have to have a vision, a sense of yourself as somebody, as a person you want to be proud of, and with dignity and with decency. And you have to have a will, the courage to hang in for the very long haul that it takes to make a dream come true. And you have to have mind with your heart. You have to be willing to learn the skills, because wanting it isn't enough. You have to put your mind to it. And when you do, you understand that you make a lot of mistakes. Every mistake can be fixed. If we told you how many times we put the nail in and took the nail out and put the nail in and took the nail out, you have to have it to go through all of the steps. And you have to use your hands. You have to be willing to work. And you take a step forward, and sometimes you take 2 back, but eventually you take 3 forward, and then maybe 1 to the side, and then you trip. But you keep working, and you keep hanging in, and in time, the dream happens. We have in our country, in my opinion, unprecedented problems. We're facing economic problems. We've got homelessness. We now, for the first time, certainly in my few years alive, it's not just the poor. Suddenly it's the working poor. And suddenly it's the middle class that can't find a way to build a home and to make their lives work. And I believe, just as in fact, America was originally built by people tossed, by people persecuted, by people running from other countries so that they could start a new dream. I believe that our process, a process that says people come together. They don't fight just for themselves and what they can get. They instead fight for a bigger dream. A dream that works for all people together, or it works for no one individually. A process that says that struggle and support are the critical parts of living, not give me what I want when I want it. A process that relies on regular folk, not on the great expertise, not on always having to have outside money. If you don't have it, then you start working for it with your beliefs, with your gut, with your heart, with your head, with your will, and with your visions. And so I hope that this building, which really stands as a testimonial to the Delancey Street process, I hope that this is a beginning not just for us, but for people looking to rebuild the American dream, so that all people like us, underclass people who have absolutely every right to enter the mainstream of America, can begin to come together, to struggle together, to work together, and to will together to make an impossible dream happen. Because even ordinary, even us, we're less than ordinary. We are, in fact, we come to Delancey Street really having hit bottom. Ordinary people can make the most impossible dreams happen. And that's what this building says, and that's what we're celebrating. To every single one of you, thank you. I'd like to give a toast, if I may, while we're passing around the Delancey Street version of champagne, which is fantastic, sparkling apple cider, better than the other bubbly. And there is no way that I can begin to name all of the people and organizations that belong in the we when we say we did it. I'd like to start first. I saw a moment ago, and now have lost, but let me just say his name and hopefully he'll wave. I'd like to start with the chairman, the CEO of the Bank of America. Delancey Street was half built. We had sold everything we owned and had spent the money to build the first half of it. We had been turned down by our own bank, and following that, we had been turned down by every bank we approached, all of whom were afraid to take the risk that 300 ex-felons and ex-dope fiends, 300 formerly unemployable people were going to make this happen until the Bank of America stepped forward and said to us, you can have a $10 million line of credit. And I want to tell you the 400 Snickers bars which I ate, waiting for that moment to occur. But that alone, I and my friends want to thank Dick Rosenberg, who is currently the chairman of the Bank of America, Tom Floyd, here he is. There's a real we in we did it. And all of the people, when we first sat down with Apathy and Sedefco, when we contacted Scott Broadway and Breyer, when we began planning the project, all of those people who believed this building, which was designed by the incredible, they keep winning awards, our architects, and you can understand why. The building was designed by Backen, Aragoni, and Ross. Is Howard Backen here? I know he's here, but to find him is a... Oh. Howard Backen, Aragoni, and Ross. Jonathan Cohen, who worked for BAR and then went out on his own and stayed with the project as the architect through the construction phase. And then we moved, after we had the design and we were beginning building, to all of the people who helped us, because we then ran into toxic problems. We had to test the soils, and there were a whole range of people that helped us through those problems. And then we went on, we could stand and go through the hoops of problems galore. But then came the incredible moment when we began construction. And I'd like to start because the dream, of course, starts first with John Maher, whose vision was Delancey Street, who's having a hell of a time up there right now. He's with my daddy, all of the people John Burton mentioned who have carried the Delancey Street dream to the point where we could build it into this incredible moment today. And going from then until, if I could ask Jack Scott, who donated not just his skills as a project manager, who donated his life for the last 3 years to supervise this project, and the Delancey Street resident, who we sent to get his contractor's license about a week before we started, who was the general contractor over this entire project. Who has 2 pairs of scissors? I have 2 pairs. Would you give one to Jack Scott? Yes. And one to Johnny Amarato, and every one of you who have helped transform this impossible dream into a reality. Our toast is to you. Ordinary people to do the most impossible things. Who did this? We did!
We only have another hour and a half.
The sad phenomenon is we're done. I'd like before we close to introduce the closest part of my family, which of course extends to everyone here. My mom, Tina Halper. My 2 sons, David and Greg Silbert, wave wherever you are. And, I see them. To Sargon Michael, to our attorney, to every one of you in Delancey Street, I love you with all my heart. You're the most gorgeous home in the entire world. And we deserve it.
The ribbon to the front of the building so we can let them in.
Okay, Jack, go to one ribbon. Johnny, go to the other ribbon.
Excuse me.
Jack cut well, Jack. Champagne off its wheel.
Is the mayor coming over for a cut too?
There we go.
Ready?
Hopefully, pull the table down. Pull the table down. Pull the table down. Pull the table towards you.
All right. Okay. You want it even?
Now, cut the other one. Good, cut. Watch where you're cutting now.
Ready?
Go ahead.
You got it.
Didn't eat. We might even mush cakes in one another's face. After all that apple cider, we might get a little loose. So,